Okay, so we'll hop right in. So, recent milestones, and this is one that's going to get a little bit of attention later on. So, the Well Creator UI is deployed. Space Bean is going to walk us through and give us a little bit of a show as to how the UI works. Really excited to see that. And yeah, looking forward to it. As for upcoming and ongoing items, similar to last meeting, wstETH, Multiflow, version 1.1, and the miscellaneous improvements package are still in audit remediation, and Beanstalk 3 is currently in audit with CodeHawks. Projects and initiative. So, quick look at the project funnel. Just one or two little updates from last time around. Really, the only change that has been made here is I moved various base and pairs from top of the funnel to bottom of the funnel. And again, that is directly related to the Well Creator UI being ready for widespread use. Okay, jump down into the project. So, not a lot of major updates concerning project timelines, a little bit of a push for some of the items in audit. Audits are just taking a little bit longer than expected. So, no major changes in terms of wstETH or Multiflow, just pushing those audit timelines out just a little bit. Any questions or additional comments from the group?
I'm happy to add a little bit of color, which is that, hope to have some sort of draft for the community to review in the next week or two. There are a couple parameters to decide on, things like the initial gauge points that the Bean wrapstETH well is initialized to. What else? The optimal distribution between Bean ETH and Bean wrapstETH. Of course, since the gauge system has been implemented, there's only been one LP token, so haven't really gotten to see the LP gauge part of the seed gauge system in action. So I think that'll be pretty interesting. Unclear exactly what that should be set to, but I think there'll be an opportunity to discuss that now if people have ideas, anytime in the future, but particularly once there's some sort of write-up that people can read.
Sounds good. All right. Multiflow version 1.1.0, kind of in a similar basket, just working through the continued audit remediations.
Yeah, on this front, Soil King is currently doing some analysis on Uniswap V2 pools, think of like ETH USDC, ETH Tether, to determine what these new parameters on Multiflow version 1.1 can be set to. Before, in version 1, there was just a percent cap on the change in reserves each block, and now it's a little bit different. There's, in addition to there being caps on the increases and the decreases in the LP token supply, there's also a cap in the exchange rates for the two tokens, which in some ways mitigates the problem that led to, I'm not sure exactly what EBIP number it was, but the one related to the Bean ETH migration, where there needed to be an EBIP to turn off minting in the Bean ETH well for several seasons, and I don't think that will be necessary during the ETH to wrapstETH migration due to this change. So that's one thing that's currently in progress on this front.
Good stuff. Appreciate it. All right. Miscellaneous improvements, similar situation. So in remediations with the CodeHawks audit team. So again, not a lot to add there. Again, unless someone wants to jump in and ask a question or add color. All right. Beanstalk 3. So again, not a whole lot of changes in terms of the actual tasks included. Obviously, ton of work you can see from the list of tasks there has been taken care of. Currently in CodeHawks audit, lots of good chatter happening there between our dev team and the CodeHawks team. Yeah, a lot of code to audit, and yeah, a lot of good questions and comments moving back and forth. Anything to add from any of the developers for Beanstalk 3?
Well, there were a couple things that weren't able to make it in time of this initial larger Beanstalk 3 audit, particularly things. Sorry, Sophocles, did you say something?
Oh, sorry, no. Should have been muted.
No worries. So there will likely be like a short, 1 to 2 week audit that follows this one that includes stuff like a stable swap well function, with the hope being at the time of this upgrade that's currently in audit, there can also be a bunch of pairs whitelisted, including Bean stablecoin pairs, of which it's more preferable to have a stable swap well function than the existing constant product 2 well function. So just a heads up that that's also in progress, or not in progress, rather, in progress of being scheduled, if you will. So there will likely be a much smaller budget proposal that goes up for that. A budget proposal to spend existing Beanstalk Farms beans, that is. I guess another thing to add on this front is, part of the Beanstalk 3 code add support for migrating to an L2. A lot of this was driven by some of the discussion, towards early May, particularly the outcome of the vote/temp check that happened at the time. Noticed in the last couple of weeks, there's been a bunch of discussion in the L2 migration channel talking about reasons not to do it, of which I would agree there are plenty, in the sense that there are a lot of reasons not to do it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think given that the very one-sided outcome of the temp check vote, feel like it's something worth still proposing, but TBD on that front. But at some point, there will need to be some convergence around what L2 to migrate to. And was doing some research today on tokens that exist on some of the larger L2s, call it Arbitrum, Base, Optimism, etc. The options are kind of limited in terms of how much liquidity there exists for different tokens. Arbitrum, just by not just total TVL, but for a lot of different assets that might be desirable to whitelist. I know Harry Smith in particular has been advocating for being wrapped to Bitcoin well, which I think would be very cool. But unfortunately, there seems to be only liquidity for wrapped Bitcoin amongst L2s on Arbitrum. So we'll see how that plays out, but I felt like that was worth mentioning.
No, agreed. So if we get to that point where we are starting to talk about a particular, trying to figure out what the preference is, let's say, for a potential L2, would that be done through a temp check or through a discussion channel? Any thoughts on how that might be navigated?
I think that's relatively unclear at this point, but to the extent that people want to discuss it, I feel like the existing channel is a pretty good spot as any.
Fair enough. All right. Any other questions or thoughts on Beanstalk 3? Okay, with that, so I'm going to take off my share screen and I'll hand it over to Space Bean.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Go ahead.
Amazing. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen real quick and let me know if you guys are able to see that.
Can't say anything yet.
Yeah.
Okay, one sec. Let me just try this. What about this?
There we go. Yep. Good to go.
Cool. Yeah, so we're super excited to have this release. It's actually live right now, but just the UI to be able to create your own wells, and just want to make sure that it's clear that whatever wells you deploy doesn't automatically mean that it is whitelisted in Silo. So that's a totally separate process, but this will help facilitate the creation of new wells. So the way that you get there is there's a new tab in Basin. It's a build tab. And on the build tab, on the build page, we have all these different components that are currently in use. And all these are, being used right now by the wstETH well. So as you can see, we have the multi-flow, concert product 2, and well.sol. These are all components that are currently being used. And to deploy your new well, you go to the well deployer here, take you to a form. And basically, you kind of go through each of these steps to choose the components that you want to use for the well you want to deploy. And so, we do provide the recommended components. So for example, we have well.sol, but if you did want to use your own well implementation, then you can go ahead and do that here as well. So I'm just going to walk through a quick flow. So you're choosing well.sol, and then you go through the flow to pick function. You can also use a custom well function as well. And then any pump, you can choose to not use a pump, but also tokens. You can go and click whatever tokens you want. We do support doing any other type of tokens like rep Bitcoin, stuff like that. But let's just say for the example, I'm just going to use DAI here. So you go through, then you go ahead and select a token name as well as a token symbol for your well. And then you go through and finish on this step basically. And so we do provide the ability for you to seed the well with liquidity. So in this case, I want to do 1,000. And when you are deploying a well with liquidity, it's important that you use an input salt. Basically any integer greater than 1. That way we're able to deploy at a deterministic address. But if you're not, then you don't necessarily need to use salt. If you have questions on what salt is, you can go ahead and read the contract or any of the documentation there. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and see if I can deploy this. Okay, yeah, it looks like there's something going on with let me try to do this real quick. Yeah, so went ahead and created the new well, took me to the new well page. And then I can go ahead and see like, oh yeah, like the bean dye well, see the new address for the token, for the well token, and then stuff like that. But I guess, does anyone have any questions so far about like the process or anything like that?
So Space Bean, new wells can be deployed with, you're saying, with any ERC20.
Yes, that's true. So in like the example that I just went through, like I could choose to do anything like wrap Bitcoin, like, someone wanted to create like an Aave pair as well, like, everything is possible as long as it's an ERC20 token.
So Space Bean, would you be willing to go through and maybe you've already thought or talked about this, just go through and do maybe we'll have the recording of what you just ran us through, but even a recording of the process just to provide an explainer to individuals that are looking to deploy wells. I don't know if that was on your list of things to do, but I would really encourage it, for folks that come along later on.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that. You're saying like separate from this meeting right now, right?
Yeah. I think, a 2-minute video walking through what you just walked through with us would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, definitely, I can definitely do that.
So this is really exciting. Appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I think that is everything for the Well Creator UI. But if anyone has any questions on like how it works, or I did see a question on like where can I read about salt? I'll happy to answer any questions.
I mean, maybe just answer the question generally. It's salt is not really like a Bayesian or even a crypto specific term. Well, I guess crypto in the sense of cryptography. It's more of a cryptography term where you give it, you give a function a random string that sort of randomizes the input. So if you'll notice like the Beanstalk contract, the pipeline contract, et cetera, it's sort of like we simulate deploying the well over and over with these different randomized strings known as salts over until we can get, the set of letters and numbers at the beginning that we want. So the only purposes of adding a salt, as far as I'm concerned, is for vanity address purposes in this context.
So please follow it up. So N asked, does it matter what value you include, or does it just have to be greater than 1?
Any number greater or equal to 1 right now.
Is there a way to preview in the UI that given the salt you input, you can see what the output address would be, or not at the moment?
There is not at the moment, but that would actually be a cool addition to this. I think it'd be probably pretty good. But yeah, as it stands right now, it doesn't have that functionality.
So Soil King asks in the chat, what if someone has used the same salt value already?
Then the deploy will fail.
I mean, I could be wrong on this, but isn't it also based on the nonce of the address you're deploying? Like that's one of the variables that would cause the address to be different, even if two people try to use the same salt, given the same set of 2 tokens and same well function, same.
So that is
I'm not
true,
sure off the top of my head.
In the Well Creator UI, the way we have it set up is all the deploy happens via pipeline. And so if 2 people are deploying through the UI and use the same salt value and all the other components being the same, then in that case, it would fail.
Got it. Interesting.
Any other questions for Space Bean or comments? Not seeing anything in the chat, so I think we're pretty well good to go. Space Bean, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for walking through this. This is great.
Of course.
Okay, so I won't pull the info deck back up, but I did want to give just another minute. Typically at this point, we give just a couple minutes for Soil King or for Sweet Red. If you guys want to talk through any subgraph updates or UI updates, the floor is yours.
Hey, sure. So I guess the main thing I have to share at this point is that you may have seen earlier this week that we're on DeFi Llama. So I think last time the update was that we were just missing the APYs. So that's up on there now. So you can see the Beanweath pool on there and the yield from the silo. And when new pools are deployed and whitelisted, they will automatically appear there as well. So yeah, so that's pretty neat. And I'm just trying to think here. The other thing I wanted to mention regarding that, I know I made a little post about it in, I think, the general chat at some point, is that the APY that it shows on there is slightly different than what we show on the Bean UI. And the reason for that is due to just kind of the APY methodology that DeFi Llama uses. So the value that we show on there, it's still using the 30-day rolling EMA, but the difference is it's for a deposit that it's like if you were to make a new deposit in the silo and you're essentially entering the silo without having any stock to begin with, it's the yield that you would get on that deposit. Whereas what we show on the Bean UI is the yield on like the average deposit according to whatever is the current average amount of grown stock in the system. So that's just something to note, that if people are wondering why the values don't line up exactly.
So would it be worth putting like, I don't know, like a tooltip when someone's hovering over the explainer, the APY and the Bean UI? I don't want to clutter things needlessly, but I can see that being kind of an ongoing question that folks have. Maybe just something to note, because yeah, I can see that coming up repeatedly, especially with new users just wondering why there's a difference. So just something to think about.
For sure. And I think going into the future as well, I mean, with a lot of the work that I've done on this, we will be able to show to users, like, well, I guess for users who currently have deposits in the silo, we will be able to show them like a personalized APY according to the exact amount of stock that they have grown already. And so I'm not sure what that looks like exactly on the UI, but that's something that, you know, I would like to move forward at some point and get that, along with, you know, kind of a way for users to simulate what the APYs might be under different conditions. And all that should be possible now with the work that I did for this.
So Soil, if I'm understanding what you were just talking about correctly, then the APY, the Bean UI will necessarily, will typically, if not always, be higher on the UI than it would be on DeFi Llama or other sites that use similar methodology, correct?
Currently, yeah, that's correct.
I suppose if I had to choose which one to be higher because of the different methodology, that's probably a preferable situation. But yeah, I would say some type of like tooltip explainer might be pretty valuable for folks over time.
Agreed.
Appreciate it. Sweet Red, anything you want to talk through, or really anybody else?
I can give a brief update. Nothing to show this week in particular, but sort of working through the final details on some of the seed gauge UX enhancements. So hopefully you'll be able to see things like the target to catch up, the optimal distribution of LP, and the bean to max LP scalar like inside of the UI on the silo page. And so that should hopefully help people understand the impact of the gauge system. And now sort of starting to think about what the convert experience will be like with these upcoming BIPs. And so that includes lambda to lambda converts and anti-lambda to lambda converts and generalized convert all within the UI. And so that's sort of where my head is at for the next couple of days. So that's it. Kind of a light week for me this week as far as updates go.
No, that's great. Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll open it up to the floor for a few minutes. If anybody has any additional questions or thoughts, I'm also hopping back into the chat real quick to make sure that I'm not missing anything there. So I can up to date. All right, seeing nothing pop up, we can cut everyone loose unless anyone has anything to add. Appreciate everybody's time. This has been great. Yeah, this is fantastic. Really excited to see what wells we see deployed here over the coming days and weeks. So yeah, appreciate everyone's time. If anyone has any questions, can always drop them into the general chat. And we will catch everybody around the farm.
You're telling me a bean built this chain?
Thanks, you're killing me.
You're telling me a bean built this chain?
Thanks, everybody.